Nearly 100 people paint this scene in watercolor. How different can they be? Which ones do you like and why? Hello, I'm Tim Wilmot, watercolor painter and tutor. I organise regular online watercolor workshops, normally on a monthly basis, and this is a compilation of attendee paintings from my September online workshop. So most months, watercolor enthusiasts from all over the world join me for a couple of hours paint-along experience where I do a step-by-step demo, discuss the actual subject, the actual scene beforehand, then go through the painting step by step with loads of commentary and plenty of chances to answer your questions. So this is last month, September 2021, was Cincinnati. We actually had a little vote on the previous workshop to that. I normally run a little poll every time asking people for the next workshop, what would you like to paint? Do you want to paint a rural landscape or a street scene or some seascape? So this one was a street scene. And I also invited people to send in their photos as well of typical street scenes. So this is kindly sent to me by Adele. So thanks very much, Adele. This is Cincinnati and the Memorial Hall. Quite a tricky building to contemplate. I did actually, in the workshop, I did actually go through the sort of architectural terms and the components of this building with all of the dimensions as well to help people just to make a little bit more sense of what we're drawing rather than going into it freehand, maybe thinking of the geometry of it and those dimensions and sizes and where are the squares, where are the rectangles, and so on. So a complete sort of introduction into the scene, trying to deconstruct the scene, trying to make it easier for people to attempt and plan their approach to it. But it's a nice scene for watercolor because it's a sunny day. We've got some nice shadows coming across the scene. I think that the sun is generally coming from the left, high up on the left-hand side, and throwing these nice shadows across the scene. So we've got lots of contrast, lights and darks, a nice sunny sky, the complicated architecture to deal with those columns and so on. Tree on the left-hand side, casting the shadow across the scene. Then there's a little bit of grass. We have some figures. We have some dogs, lots of dogs around the scene, and edges as well. Soft edges on the shadow here, maybe some hard edges on some of the architecture. So lots of different components to contemplate for a watercolor subject. So I'm going to go through all these attendee paintings one by one, just give a short critique on each one. It is just my own opinion, of course, with what you may like, I may not like so much, and vice versa. So there we are. And what I'm looking for is in each painting is the composition and drawing skills and watercolor technique and sticking to the brief. Also, bear in mind that the photos of the paintings are taken by the attendees themselves, and there will be lots of different variations in the quality of the photographs. So bear that in mind. Some may appear a little bit dark, or maybe slightly out of focus, or not too big, or not too high a resolution. So just bear that in mind. So if you want to take part in future events, you can see all my events at crowdcast.io/Tim Wilmot. Crowdcast is the platform, crowdcast.io/Tim Wilmot, TIMWILMOT. Hope to see you on the next workshop. I'll kick off with my painting. This is my effort, the demo on the day, and trying to obviously do a good job on that lovely building behind and these nice shadows, trying to introduce different colors into those shadows, not making them too gray or monotone. And then the foreground, lots of light streams through that foreground, introduce a few figures into the scene, a token dog as well, and those shadows being created by the tree on the left. So it was a little bit of a practice in painting trees as well, and getting some realistic foliage shapes into it as well. And then grass, what colour is grass? And a shadow on grass, what colour is that? And then coming across the pavement here, the shadow there, that what's the colour, and getting in these different edges. We did a little bit of wet in wet there as a watercolour technique. So that's my effort. Let's see the attendee paintings. I'm going through in alphabetical order. So first up, Alison. Done a good job on that building behind. Love the figures. Maybe the shadows could be a little bit darker just to increase that impact, and thinking about those edges as well. But a very nice picture. Lovely blue sky as well. Good job on the tree. Well done, Alison. Anne. Yeah, very nice with that. Now you've done a slightly different approach to that architecture behind. You've actually kind of simplified it, which I think works. Nice colours as well, with some subtle variations in a sort of like a sort of camel coloured, stony coloured, almost like a Cotswold stone, and that rosy pinkish colour on the right. Good figures and good shadows coming across the scene as well. I love that tree. Yeah, and very nice sky as well. Well done, Anne. And Anna. So you've actually, Anne has actually pushed this architecture back, so we have more of a sort of panoramic view, and made more of a feature of the scene. I think the standout here are these shadows, but particularly that tree. That tree is lovely. The light hitting that right-hand side. A bit of shadow there, but I like the brushwork on this. I think with trees, brushwork is very important. Or it's very loose. Yeah, stand out there's that lovely tree. Thanks, Anna. And Barb. Very nice. You kept probably true to my composition with the placement of the figures. Yeah, good job on the architecture. That tree, maybe the tree could be a little bit more dense. The foliage could be a little more dense in the middle there, Barb, just to give some indication of the density of the foliage and maybe the trunk coming down. But lovely scene and nice shadows coming across, and I like the splattering effect that you got on the foreground shadows as well. Thanks, Barb. And Barbara. Yes, and again, a slightly different composition, take on the scene. You've moved the figures around, well done. Now just watch with the perspective with figures in a scene like this, trying to get the tops of the heads generally fairly level. Just watch out for that. So that we're avoiding the feeling that we're looking down on the scene too much. But good job with the architecture there, and the shadows and that foliage coming down the left-hand side. Yeah, a slightly different composition there. Well done, Barbara. Barry, I think this is Barry. Sue. Yes, like a sort of lacy type effect, the shadows in the foreground. I like these figures here. The placement of the figures and the dog on the lead. The architecture, very good. I'm not sure if there's a slight lean to it. Maybe it might be the photograph, the angle of the photograph. Lovely tree on the left-hand side. Shadows coming across. Perhaps the shadows coming across the pavement here could be a little bit more solid. Just close up some of those gaps, particularly near this edge of the grass there, just to make them just a little bit more solid. But lovely picture and very nice sky as well. Thanks, Barry. Bob. Well, a nice bright scene. A different way of handling the architecture with those prominent colours that you've got in there, yellows and lights. and the shadows. You've moved the bushes around a little bit more. Love the figures as well out there. With the trees, actually they're very good trees. Trying to make the trunks too perfect though. They're very nice trunks, but try and make them a little bit imperfect. Maybe make them a little bit darker. I think we need to make them a little bit darker possibly and bring the foliage down so we're closing some of these lighter gaps down there. Lovely shadows coming across though. I like all this. This is just what watercolour does. Look at all the different brown that warms and cools in that shadow. Very loose way in which you've done the shadows of the trees. Yeah, excellent, Bob. Thank you. Bronwyn. Very nice. I like the way the building has been kept fairly light and it pushes it back quite a bit. And also, I think the soft edges, Bronwyn, that you've got into the architecture there works really well. I like the detail on the top of the columns. We've got the feeling of the ornate structure there and the architectural details. Figures, love the figures, very loose. Particularly the male figure there. Sense of movement. Well, both of them have got a sense of movement. And this figure over here. And the dog sort of straining and pulling the lead, going off the left-hand side. Good job on the tree. Maybe just, as I've mentioned before, with one or two others, try and make the actual canopy a little bit more dense in the middle of the canopy. A lovely tree though, and shadows coming across. Well done, Bronwyn. Bruno. Yeah, great figures. You've changed the scene again. You have you've got the boulders in, which was in Adele's source photo, which I left out. I thought that might have been just a bit too much detail, trying to simplify the grassy bit here. But well done for including that. And you've got 2 dogs in as well. So you win the prize so far for the most dogs. Good job on the architecture. Yes, you spent a bit of time getting it right and some of the details of the arches there. Brilliant. Yeah, maybe the figure here, the head might be just a little bit too big, but it's a nice figure. And well done on getting the dogs. Nice shadows coming across the scene also. Well done, Bruno. Calvin. Calvin's iconic, clean style, very, very simple. And Calvin always gets in the lady with the wide-brimmed hat and the long flowing dress. And you've actually gone for a more solid shape, like a solid sort of, well, like a large shrub in a way on the left-hand side. Totally different. As I said at the beginning, everyone's got their own interpretation of the scene, and this is Calvin's style, trying to simplify the scene and include the trademark lady. But you've managed to get in the figures, so we've got a sense of depth there. Yeah, a nice interpretation of the scene. And the dog patiently sat down while the lady is pointing out some feature of the building. Well done, Calvin. And Ching. Very nice. Love the tree. Nice shadows coming across. Maybe the shadows might be a little bit overworked here. Just a tiny bit. The shadows on the grass, I like those. I like the figures as well. Brilliant figures, especially this middle figure there. And you've sneaked in a little bit of yellow into that building, trying to make that a bit more interesting. But good job on that building. Well done. And the shadows within the building. Well done, Ching. Christian. All very colourful. Let's just zoom in here. Try to zoom a bit. This got a distinctive style about it. I'm not sure if there's been a little bit of splattering going on here, but very bright. And I think that darker sky, that darker blue sky, the way that Christian's done this is it's actually making the building a lot lighter. So this is very, very nice. I know Christian likes his splattering technique a lot. This is brilliant though. And the pattern of that splattering going across the foreground, the way that the figures are, again, it's what watercolor does. You know, this sort of bleeding and blending that's going on and connections works really well. Lovely. And those lighter touches in the building, again, emphasizing that sort of bright sunshine coming in. I think that sky, I like the sky actually in this one. And the contrast, look at that contrast of the blue with that red. Works really well. Thanks so much, Christian and Christina. Now you've made the building in the back just a little bit wider. No problem with that. Works really well. Nice job. And also, again, what watercolor does, that sort of bleeding there. But you've not touched it. Watercolor did it. You didn't touch it. It could be a little yellow ochreish cloud behind, bit of cloud on the top of the building. Beautiful. Nothing overworked. Nice shadows coming across. Figures might be just a little bit static. I would say try and make them with the leg configuration. Try not to make them identical. Perhaps if one of the figures had a slightly different setup of the legs, that might work a little bit more. But well done on that. Lovely shadows though. Great colours, nothing overworked. Brilliant. Well done, Christina. Dan. Oh, another loose one. This is like Christian's. Very loose. Dramatic. The way that the building's been done, lots of figures as well. Oh, I like this. You haven't gone for those bright greens of the grass that I did, but it works. We can feel that this is grass going along here, a slightly different surface to the rest of the scene over on the right hand side. We've got a sort of muted green over here at the hedge that's immediately in front of the hall, but a nice loose way that you've done that building. Works really well. And that loose tree as well, all those brush marks. Let's see if we can zoom in, zoom into a brush mark. There we are. Dry brush marks on the edge of the canopy. Gives it a bit of movement. Tree's not too symmetrical. Lovely. Well done, Dan. And Daniel. Very nice. Again, we've got with the direction of the brush marks, a bit of drama happening here. I think with this reddish building was in the back, because it's got some lighter patches around it, makes it look as if it's coming forwards a bit. So try and connect the tree and go over that reddish building just to push the reddish building back further in the viewer's eye. Good job on the memorial building though, and the figures. Yeah, very nice figures, sense of movement. With the shadows might be just a little bit overworked. I would try and connect them a bit more, and also where the edge of the grass is, perhaps have more of a solid shadow there rather than these lighter areas. But well done, Daniel, or Dan, thank you. David, you've chosen not to have that building on the right. No problem with that. We've got more of a feature of the memorial building itself. The tree is good. Maybe consider some larger brush marks on the right-hand side, so it's not too fiddly down that right-hand side there, not make it too perfect, but lovely shadows coming across the scene. And I like the figures as well. Two figures arm in arm walking towards the scene. Is that a figure there? Might be. Yes, we've got some other interest there. Very nice. Well done, David. And Debbie. Debbie, you've actually, and there's nothing wrong with this, but copying the figures in the photograph, and I think a pretty close match to those figures. Works really well. Actually, those figures are really good. I particularly like the girl on the boulders there. You got the boulders in, loads of dogs again. Well done. Nice blue in that architecture, lovely tree. Yes, very nice. Perhaps the hands on the hips, for me, look a little bit odd. I think it's mainly that left-hand arm. But they are really good figures, though. Yes, well done. Thanks very much, Debbie. And Doris, no, Doris's photo might be a little bit out of focus, but we can see what's going on here. Nice loose way that Doris has done the building, memorial building. Quite soft. This has got quite a soft feeling to it, I think, with the colour of the building and the colour of the sky. Nice tree on the left-hand side. Good figures. Maybe this guy's head could be a little bit larger for the size of the figure. And good dogs as well. Just watch with the dogs. I think not to make the ears just a little bit too big. But lovely shadows came across. Nothing overworked. Good job. Well done, Doris. And Fauzia. Oh, very colourful. Now, Fauzia's put a tree on the right-hand side. Nothing wrong with that. It's actually a nice kind of frame on that right-hand side. That works really well. And a slightly different technique to doing the shadows. Well, maybe a little bit overworked, just a tiny bit, so just be careful there. But a nice idea with that design element and beautiful colours that you've got into the building on the left-hand side. You've done these two trees in a slightly different way. I think I prefer that one on the right to the one on the left as a type of, as a way of doing the foliage. These lines that you've got there, I think they work quite well to lead the eye into the scene. Well done, Fauzia. And Philippe or Felipe. I like that sky. Very nice. You've done it loosely, done it quick. We've got some clouds coming, a bit of softness to it. Lovely tree on the left-hand side as well. Beautiful shadows. The figures, I'm not sure if this guy looks a little bit too chunky, but I like those two figures there. And nice loose way in which you've done those railings. But beautiful building. Yeah, good job on the building. Well done, Felipe and Francisco. A bit of a softer one, this one. Very soft. That building, though, is superbly drawn. Very, very accurately drawn. All of the architectural details, the different elements of that building, correct, in that sort of soft style. I think the tree might be a little bit too fussy. I like the foliage elsewhere, but a little bit too fussy. I like the figures. Figures are very good, especially this one here on the right-hand side. And the way that you've done the legs. Yes, thank you, Francisco. Nice soft version. And Gisela. Well, by contrast, quite colourful here, bright. Not sure about the tree. Tree looks a little bit sort of like a skeleton. I think it needs to be plumped out a little bit with more foliage. So maybe a bigger brush, but lovely colour of the grass. Figures, just watch the size of the head. The female figure looks better, but the guy here the head looks a little bit too small. And yeah, nice shadows. Perhaps we could have a few more shadows coming across the grass. And nice bit of movement in that child figure. Good job on the architecture, though. Very good. Well done, Gisela. And Hans. Very bold. Lots of, quite dark with those shadows. You've got more of a steep bank on the left-hand side. Again, that works from a composition point of view. No problem with just changing little details like that, changing the gradient of something or the street furniture, railings, lampposts, pots, boulders, change them just to suit the composition. Nice loose way in which you've done the building. I love that building. And that sky, super sky. Just zoom into that sky. Yeah, very nice. We got some soft clouds, different edges, hard edge there, soft edge there. Foliage coming across the building just to connect that element as well. That's a very important thing that I pointed out in the workshop, trying to connect these different elements together so they're not too in isolation. Tree on the left-hand side, then a gap, then the building itself, then another gap. Trying to join them all together. Well done, Hans and Isabel. Very good job on the building. Yes, works really well. Nice sky. The tree, I like the brush marks. You've done a bit of scraping out, I can see here, for the twigs and branches. That works really well. It's quite difficult to do that, what Isabel's done, but she's done it really well by judging the timing of the wetness of the paper. And also that little bit of, I'm not sure if you've done a bit of negative painting there, but to get like a lighter twig. Nice sort of attention detail, good shadows coming across the ground, good figures, very good figures, like the female figure there, brilliant. And a bit of attention to detail, that bit of shadow going across the lower figure, of course the light's coming from the left-hand side, well I think the light's coming from the left-hand side, so we got the top part of the figure in the sun, and friend on the left, a lot darker. Yeah, very good figures, Isabel, thank you. Javier. I'm hopeless with Hispanic or Spanish names that pronounce it. Javier, is it a silent J? I like the red here in the foreground. I mean, that red brings it forwards. Do you not feel that redness just brings that foreground a little bit closer to us? Nice job on the building, very good, nice and loose. Lots of good contrast with the shadows, nice figures as well. I would try, with the shadows, I would try and get them a little bit softer perhaps, or a little bit lighter further away from us. This area here works well, and the shadows coming across the grass, and that the angle that you've got there of those shadows as well works really well. Just to, it's a nice shape, you know, that sort of shape going on from a composition point of view. It's framing, in a way, it's sort of framing that building behind it. So well done, Jim. Oh, how bright is that? Love it. And especially, I think the standout here is this top left corner. We feel that, or I feel that the sun. I feel the sun is maybe a little bit lower, but it's just piercing through the side of that tree and almost blinding us with that bright light. Oh, this is very colourful. Not so sure about the shadows here coming across the foreground. This dog might be just a little bit too light, but really good job on those figures and the building with those yellows and cools, the colours that you've got into those shadows. Loose, nothing overworked. No, nothing's overworked here at all. Nice and fresh and so colourful. Well done, Jim. Joy, a softer approach, like the tree, quite light here, gives a feeling of brighter sunlight coming here, slightly dark on the right-hand side. Nice loose way in which the building has been done. Great figures. Oh, I love that dog. That dog looks like is it like a Scottish Terrier or something like that? And the dog's looking over to the left. Something's caught its attention in the bushes maybe, or something like that. Great shadows coming across the scene. Yes, nice I would say more of a delicate watercolour, but quite loose. Good job. Well done, Joy. Laurie, another bright one. I like these dramatic shadows coming across the scene. Lots of hard and soft edges in those. Good job on the building as well. Now you've got the figures coming towards us. Nice touch. I think most of us had the figures as in the photo, the figures going away from us, but a nice touch. I particularly like that guy figure there. Looks quite relaxed and informal. Good job on the tree. Perhaps could be a little bit more dense in the center of that tree. Yeah, very colourful, very bright, and I particularly like your shadows, Laurie. Well done. Lydia. I like the building. You put a lot of effort into that building with the posters either side of the building, and I don't know what it is, but it almost looks like we're looking up into that building in a way. So we've got this sort of the imposing size of it and these two figures. Perhaps it's emphasized with these figures looking, I just looked at that dog. These figures looking up into the building. That dog's waiting for a treat, and this guy's got some treats in his pocket waiting to give to the dog maybe. Yeah, very nice. Yeah, good job on the dogs. That building, superb. Tree, with the tree, trying to make them too perfect, as in their symmetry and their size, but I like the lean on it. That's a nice idea, leaning that tree there's sort of leaning that way into, it's going into the scene. And of course then those shadows coming down, and you've got some boulders in there as well. Good job on those figures and those guys' legs, really well done. Legs are so difficult to get right with this sort of size of painting, but they are done really well. Yeah. Well done, Lydia. And Lynn. Yeah, sort of loose way in which you've done the building. Lots of figures that you've got in there. And dogs as well. Nice placement of everything from the composition point of view. You've got in a few lamps, but good level of detail on the building as well. Nice sky. Very, very nice. Nice and colourful. Well done, Lynn. And another Lynn with an E. Now you've got these figures on the right-hand side. Just be a bit careful with having too much on the right-hand side. But I guess from a framing point of view, where we had a previous picture with a tree on the right-hand side, these larger figures as an element on the right-hand side works quite well. I think that figure there might be a little bit too small. Watch with the heights of the figures, trying to have them all, the heights of the heads, to have them all in one row. So maybe that figure there could be a little bit taller in the scene. Something like that would be a little bit better. Otherwise, we've got a feeling of a slope going downhill. Nice tree though on the left-hand side. These shadows are fantastic. I like that grass there. That's a very effective green. Lovely green. And good job on the building. Well done, Lynn. Maddie. Let's just zoom in on Maddie's. Oh, nice, soft. Now, this is taken, the photograph's been taken at a little bit of an angle, but we can see what's going on here. Good job on the building. With the shadows, I would say with your brush mark, your brush direction, try and get a little bit more consistency with the brush direction, just so that we don't have this sort of a little bit more haphazard direction. It's particularly noticeable on the grass. I think if there were more linear lines here, that would work a little bit better. But good job on the figures. Well done, Maddie. And Mary Pat. Nice soft edge to the building where you've done the wash and you've let that colour just seep a little bit into the sky. Nice and loose. Just watch the overworking of the shadows. I think the shadow on the pavement is brilliant. Lovely. And just be careful not too much overworking of the shadow on the grass. But I love that tree. Great figures as well. The placement of the figures, small one there, large one there, smaller one on the right-hand side. It's got a nice balance to it. And good job on the sky. Well done, Mary Pat. Mike. So Mike, you've got the boulders in. I can see a child playing around those boulders. So a nice placement of figures again, that sort of framing of the building behind. Nice attention to detail of the building. Very good job on the architecture there. Perhaps the columns could stand out just a little bit more. They look a little bit too, maybe a little bit too narrow, possibly. But very, very good job. Like the tree and the way you've done the railings, and those shadows are very effective. Well done, Mike. Natalie. I like the warm glow here. This is loose. The way you've done the tree, the clouds, the soft edge of the top of the memorial hall, and the loose way in which you've done the shadows. Like it, particularly around the middle portion of that building. Great figures as well. Yeah, nice one. Well done, Natalie. Nydia. Love the building. Very good job. I think maybe the photo is perhaps a little bit darker than your actual painting. I'm sure the painting would be quite bright on the right-hand side there. With the foliage, just don't be too fussy with the brush marks on the left-hand side. Perhaps have some of that. They're all the same size of brush marks, so just try and have different sizes of brush marks, or maybe do it with a bigger brush, and just be careful with a little bit of overworking of the shadow on the grass. Love the shadow though on the pavement, and those figures are brilliant. I like the guy, the slight lean of that guy there that's holding the dog. Very good. And nice warm colours on that building. Very good sky as well. And you've spent quite a bit of time trying to get in the details of that architecture, the tops of the columns, above these entrances. Yes, very good. Pablo. Slightly different palette of colours here. Quite cool, I think. It's a cool red and that cool sky. Just watch with the overworking a little bit of that sky, but the building has been drawn very well. Looks like two female figures here, slightly different pose of those figures. The tree perhaps could be a little bit denser, but I'm not sure if that's your style. I like the way that the angle of the tree sort of goes a little bit like that in a way. Quite nice. Gives it more of a round form to it. Shadows could be a tiny bit darker as well, just a little bit darker. But not a nice sort of cool feeling to it, a slightly different approach. You can see with different colours, with different strength of colours, you get a completely different atmosphere to the painting. Thanks very much, Pablo. And Pam. Well, let's just zoom in on this. Now, Pam's gone more widescreen here, and I think it works really well, actually, with that building. We've got more space to play with the paper and create some feeling of the majesty of that building, if I said that right. Beautiful colours though. Warms, cools. Let's just zoom in a bit more. Warms, cools. Look at that nice blue shadow underneath that left-hand side. Very loose way in which you've done the architecture, that loose tree, great shadows coming across the scene. Just watch a little bit of that white gap appearing around the figures, but those figures are brilliant. Oh, it's very loose. I like this a lot. Yeah, well done, Pam. Thank you. Let's zoom back out again. And Pat. Well, we have a bit of a dog walking meeting going on here. A dog walking from the left-hand side. Very good job on the building. Not too much detail, pushes it back a bit. The tree on the left-hand side, superb. Nice bit of shadow coming across. Might be a slight lean on that dog, but very good figures. Like the female figure there. Yes, really works. Well done, Pat. Thank you. Pedro. It's another soft one. Another cool, softer one. And the building is good. It's as I say, it's soft. It pushes it back a little bit. Loose way in which you've done the sky. The tree could be a little bit more solid as well. And as I've pointed out with some other people, consider using maybe a bigger brush or different sizes of brush marks for that photo so it doesn't look too fussy. Nice soft shadows coming across the foreground. Try and connect possibly some of these shapes of the shadow, particularly on the pavement there, just to make them appear and make the shadow appear more as one shape rather than lots of individual shapes. But good job on those figures, especially that female figure there. Lovely. Well done, Pedro. Thank you. And Phyllis. Oh, Phyllis has done a bit of framing here. It's always nice when you frame something, it just suddenly looks, it looks good, but it looks even better when you frame it. Now you've actually included, I'm not sure if you know the area, but you've included more of the buildings on the left-hand side. We've got to watch it from a composition point of view that we're balancing things out with all of the detail mainly on the right-hand side, that building and the three figures. We could end up with this being a little bit of a blank area, a bit of a bland area, but you've done a good job by putting in another tree. I think the tree, like others, just a little bit too fussy with all of these small little brush marks, so just consider again using a bigger brush. Like the way that you've done the sky, nice loose way you've done the building, particularly at the top of that building. This connection of the sky to the building there, brilliant. Well done, Phyllis. I'll just watch that paint there might be a tiny bit too thick, perhaps a bit more water on the brush. Yeah, well done, lovely one. Thank you, Phyllis. And Ravi B. Oh, I like that. No, there's a bit of a green touch going here, which could be moss or something like that. Very nice colour to consider in there. So we've got warms, we've got the cool blues, we've got a bit of a cool green going on. Good figures. Nice tree as well, the way that you've done that. Lovely shadows coming across the grass. Yeah, excellent. Nice and loose, nothing overworked. Well done, Ravi. And another Ravi. So we've had Ravi B and Ravi N. Yes, I like the building. Good job on the building. Lovely bit of blue and that streak of sort of something yellow we noticed going through the scene. Like the interior, these three inset bits here, that works real nice and loose. Good figures. Perhaps the shadow on the grass could be a little bit darker. A few more harder edges here, so softer edge on the right-hand side where the shadow's further away from the tree. And maybe go a little bit bigger with some of the brush marks on that tree. Yeah, very nice. Well done. Nothing overworked. Nice, fresh, bright watercolor. And Ray, I'm immediately drawn to this guy's hat. That's a nice touch, having a figure with a light coloured hat against a darker background works well. And then this, in a similar way, that lady here with the light there against that darker foliage. You need to plan it through. I think this photograph may be slightly out of focus, but we can see what's going on. Like the tree, those shadows are brilliant. This is, to me, this is just perfect. So you've got harder edges here on the grass, and then we've got slightly softer edges coming out towards the on the pavement there. Very nice, and good job on the building as well. Well done, Ray. And Rhonda. Let's zoom in here. Rhonda's framed this as well. Makes it look even nicer. Yes, I like the way that you've done that building. With the tree, think about those brush marks. Don't make them too blobby. Lots of sort of blobs there. So try and maybe connect them different marks. Observatory, trying to see the shape of the foliage around a branch, trying to think of that more. Shadows, yes, shadows are good. Perhaps that grass might be a little bit too cool. Adding a bit more yellow into that, I would say, or possibly a little bit of red, just to make it less cool. But nice job on the building. Well done, and good figures. Well done, Rhonda. Sally. I like the colour on the building. Nice building, loose, good sky. Tree on the left-hand side. Yes, very good. Shadows coming across, nice figures. I think with the dog, I think with dogs maybe, I know they've got 4 legs, but maybe consider that we only see 2 of them or 3 of them. Do you see what I mean? Just so that we might get a sense of movement a little bit more. But good job on those figures, connecting the shadow with the figures. Excellent. I love those shadows as well, the different colours that you've got in there. Blues, bit of granulation happening, no overworking, bit of light hitting, coming through. Yeah, well done, Sally. Excuse me, and Sandra. Very colourful, very bright. Quite a lot of blue in this. Good job on the figures. I'd be careful with this doggy down here being I don't think the picture needs that dog down there. I'm not sure what this is here going on there, but maybe we can make that into a bush or something. That dog needs a little bit of a shadow underneath it. These figures over on the left-hand side are brilliant. That lady, the girl there, very nice. And that building, so colourful. Really sort of stands out with the lightness that you've got on it and that blue sky. Well done, Sandra. And Saro. A softer approach to this one. I like the way the tree blends in with the grass. That shadow on the grass. Like it. And we can see the texture of the paper. Zoom in here. We can see the texture of the paper, which I think all there's so many different brands of watercolor paper. And they've all got different surfaces, and it's quite attractive that when it shows through with the transparency of watercolor. Look at the nice loose approach to the shadows on this building. Nothing overworked. Maybe the figure, the female figure, good. Not sure about the male figure. Maybe the legs are a little bit too thick. He looks a bit sort of static in a way. But the lady, brilliant. A nice sky as well. Yeah, lovely shadows, Saro. Thank you. And Sheila W. Got a wider dimension to the paper. I think the tree looks good. I'm not sure if the tree needs some kind of connection to the ground, or maybe we are thinking that this tree is the tree trunk is way over on the left-hand side, and this is just the sort of right-hand side of the canopy. I think the railings look a little bit too weedy there. Perhaps they could be a bit larger. although it might be just something to keep out the rabbits or something like that. Quite soft shadows. Could have gone a few more harder edges with the shadows. Lovely building though. Very, very good building, and these figures are very good also. Nice sky. Soft edge. There, just what watercolor does. Beautiful. Well done, Sheila. And we have another Sheila. Very loose, nothing overworked. This is another cool one, I think. Perhaps we could just warm it up a little bit with some warmer colours, the yellow ochres or something like that. Like the way that you've done the tree, except maybe just close up some of these gaps just a tiny bit more. And just watch with the darker, I think probably you're aiming for maybe a few twigs or branches there. Perhaps have a thinner brush for that. Lovely job on the building though. Good job on the figures. And now with the shadows, we've got a bit of a hard edge there. Maybe just try and, it needs a bit of practice, but try and get that softer edge further away from the object that's causing the shadow. But nice composition. Yeah, well done, Sheila. Thank you. And Sly. Well done on the building. We've missed that one on the right-hand side, but it doesn't matter. Just to consider having something in that area there, just to sort of close up that gap. It could be anything, some distant buildings or whatever. Nice figures. This figure over here might be a little bit lost. Be careful with just a tiny bit too much white paint. Would be a little bit careful with that, like the way down the tree. The shadow it's good. I prefer a bit of a harder edge somewhere just to make this middle area a bit lighter and then the foreground a bit darker. Just so that we have a feeling of more of the brighter sunlight coming in. But that sky is fantastic. That building is brilliant. Superbly drawn. Nicely painted, nice shadows. Yeah. Very good. And Suniti. Oh, there might be a bit of a shadow on that left-hand side there, maybe. Although if that darker left-hand corner there is part of the painting, it does add a bit of drama to it. It's like a sort of dark cloud suddenly coming over. It could be a twilight scene. Love the figures. Nice bit of movement there. Do you see with the way that the leg's been done? This figure in the middle, though, might be sort of skipping a bit too much, and we need a bit of shadow under there, or maybe a longer leg. Nice loose way in which you've done the architecture. Nice shadows coming across. Yeah, thanks, Suniti. Tamim. Very loose. I like this figure on the right-hand side coming into the scene. And there's not much detail to the figure. The legs have been done so simply, but we've got that sense of movement coming in there. A lot of connection going on, those figures with the trees there on the left-hand side. Very loose, connecting everything. Bit of scraping out for the branches. Lots of nice watercolor techniques going on here. Bit of light hitting these central columns. Dry brush marks for the top details there. Beautiful, very loose. Well done, Tamim. Like it. And Todd. It's loose. We've got some good shadows coming across the scene. Not so sure about this light area here. Maybe it just needs to be perhaps a little bit darker. So that darker green coming over this area here. I think that will work a little bit better. Just be careful with the light area around figures, but I like those figures. That guy there, I assume it's a guy. Very nice. Nicely done. The way that you've got that left leg and the right leg, superb. Good building as well. Good job. I would say trying to make it too dark here. We want to try and push it back a little bit, but that building is superbly done and lovely sky. Well done, Todd and Tom. Building good. Shadows are good. I think with the shadows, you've got some lines here going this way. Perhaps if the lines were a little bit more sloping down, we get a feel of the gradient of that grass verge just a little bit more. That figure might be just a little bit too light. And watch with the lighter area around these figures. We're painting, we can paint all over this, all over the figure that we might have drawn beforehand, and then just go in a little bit darker with that figure afterwards to avoid that lighter area. But nice job. Good job. Well, very good job, actually, of the building. Lovely and nice flat sky. Thank you, Tom. Tony, very colourful. Oh, you've got a bit more of the foreground coming in here. So we got a chance to play around with those shadows, which you've done. That sort of, that sort of radial pattern coming out. Excellent. That dog might be just a little bit too light, but it's an excellent dog. You've got the sort of hairs of that dog in there. Brilliantly. These figures are very good. Nice legs on that guy as well. Building, brilliant. Just watch with a little bit overworking of the tree there and some of this lighter colour. I would say try and perhaps put the lighter colour in first and the darker colour over the top, rather than the darker colour first and the lighter colour over the top, and trying to go just a little bit too thick. It could end up with the feeling of it just slightly being overworked. But a very nice bright scene. I also like this little trim going around here. Not sure if it's stone or gravel or something. Very effective. But you can see, playing around with the composition, we've got more of a feature of the foreground, so we can actually emphasize some of those shadows a bit more. Well done, Tony and Tonya. A nice warm scene, quite soft. Very loose with the shadows. Try and make the tree a little bit more dense, I think. The building behind, superbly drawn, but I would try and make some of these brush marks, the edges, a little bit softer. They're a little bit too hard on the edges. Sky, very nice, good figures as well. Well done, Tonya and Eve. Very bright. I like that sky. Very soft, and the way that you've got in the clouds as well. I guess you might have pre-wet the sky and then dropped in the colours. We've got a nice soft edge to the top of the building. It all blends in very nicely. A nice sort of warm feeling to the scene. Again, be careful with this lighter boundary around these figures. That's not too noticeable actually, but good job on those figures. Lovely shadows coming across the scene as well. So I think that's the last one. So thanks very much for watching through all these. If you want to take part, go to crowdcast.io/Tim Wilmot. Hopefully see you on the next workshop. Thanks very much for those of you that sent in your paintings. If any late ones come in, I'll respond to them separately. This is the group video, but if any late ones come in, I will separately reply to you, respond to you with my little short critique for you. So thanks very much, and catch up with you on the next video.